We're now up to 10 witnesses going on the record stating the Atlantic report on Trump denigrating the troops is a complete lie. What's up, guys? I'm Dubs. Welcome to another segment of Dubs Nation. Please don't forget to subscribe. I'm trying to grow the channel, but most importantly, let's fight this evil left-wing propaganda by sharing the crap out of videos like mine and others. Okay, so we got up to 10 now. Witnesses that are actually going on the record and putting their names out there onto their comments saying that this is all a complete lie. Now, I stated in my last video that this is clearly a concerted effort by the media and the Democrats to just start planting these seeds out there, because it doesn't matter to them if something is true or not. It doesn't matter. It's just about getting it out there so it hits people's ears. That's it. If it's debunked even later, it doesn't matter, because people that are apolitical, people that don't follow things regularly, will just remember the biggest part of it. They'll remember the loudest part, the first part, the part where it was dominating the news cycle for days, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A perfect example is how the media and the left claim that President Trump called the coronavirus itself a hoax, meaning he thought the virus didn't actually exist, when we all know that that's not what he said. It's not what he said. Even the most left-wing absurd fact-checkers like Snopes couldn't even give it a true rating, or they could only give it a mixture rating, but we know that he said the Democrats blaming Trump for the virus is their new hoax. Okay? So it's a perfect example of the media planting a seed in the public and them just picking up on it from the first time it hits their ears, instead of getting the corrected or abridged version later. I still get that to this day from people, random mass people on social media. They'll say, Trump called the virus a hoax and now there's 185,000 dead. No. But that's just the world we live in now. Nobody bothers to pay attention, and unfortunately you really have to take the time. If you don't take the time and sift your way through all the BS and all the propaganda and all the biased reporting, then you're going to get barraged with left-wing propaganda. And it really is powerful. Even if to a layperson or somebody, again, that's apolitical, they try to just, Google fact check, they're going to get a Washington Post fact check. Or they're going to get a CNN fact check. I mean, we know those are useless. They're worthless, right? So let's go over. We got people such as Mick Mulvaney going on record. We got Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. And let's read this one right here. We have Johnny DeStefano, who is the former counsel to the president. It's tweeting right here, I was on this trip. The Atlantic bit is not true, period. There's many others as well. Derek Lyons, staff secretary and counsel to the president, and Dan Walsh, former White House deputy chief of staff, have also both denied the report. So we have a bunch of different people going on record and stating this is complete bullshit. Now, I believe the most important person that had gone on record to deny these claims is John Bolton. Now, everybody knows that John Bolton and Trump are not allies. They're not friends. And John Bolton wrote this big gotcha book about all the bad things that President Trump did. And it was pretty much a nothing burger. And he actually came out because apparently the guy still has some sort of integrity left. He's not a liar, at least. He might be a bad national security advisor, but at least he's not a liar, apparently. At least not in this instance, because he could have easily just buried Trump or just piled on him because he's not a fan and he doesn't like him, but he did it. He told the truth. So he actually said Marine One's crew was saying that bad visibility could make it imprudent to chopper to the cemetery. Bolton wrote, the ceiling was not too low for Marines to fly in combat, but flying POTUS was obviously something very different. If a motorcade were necessary, it could take between 90 and 120 minutes each way along roads that were not exactly freeways, posing an unacceptable risk that we could not get the president out of France quickly enough in case of an emergency. It was a straightforward decision to cancel the visit. Bolton later added the press turned canceling the cemetery visit into a story that Trump was afraid of the rain and took glee, pointing out that the other world leaders traveled around during the day. Of course, none of them were the President of the United States, but the press didn't understand that rules for U.S. presidents are different for rules for 190 other different leaders who don't command the world's greatest military forces. That makes a good point. Okay, so here we are. Unnamed sources, again. Just when you thought you couldn't get any worse, couldn't get any more ridiculous, couldn't get any more absurd, we get this. And it feels like it's like a cheesy movie now, with all the half-baked, lame, clearly false efforts, clearly colluding efforts between who knows, media and Democrats, the Biden campaign, who knows, to just push blatantly false or completely uncorroborated BS stories. If you come out with something like this, you have to name your sources. I don't give a shit about this anonymity. That does not work anymore. Okay? And we stumbled across this little story right here. The Atlantic editor defends using anonymous sources for Trump hit piece. Back in 2016, he blasted using anonymous sources, targeting him. So anonymous sources are okay when he benefits from them, but anonymous sources are no good when they are coming after him. Sound familiar? Do you see a pattern here now? You have to stay locked down in your house. You have to wear a mask. They don't. Do you see a pattern? They can bring up false investigations and falsified FISA warrants and BS fake evidence in order to get warrants and surveillance taps on a sitting president or an incoming president and not get charged at all. Have no problems at all. A couple people get fired. That's it. But then they get lucrative, speaking deals, or they become pundits on some left-wing media source or media outlet. No big deal for them. Us, if that were us, we'd be doing 20 years. Look at Michael Flynn. The guy's bankrupted. Still, because of that. There's two sets of standards here. This guy, this loser from the Atlantic, on Sunday appearing on CNN's Reliable Sources with with host Brian Stelter, always makes me laugh every time I say it. Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic, which has been slammed for running a hit piece on President Trump based on anonymous sources, blamed Trump, claiming, "We all have to use anonymous sources, especially in a climate in which the President of the United States tries to actively intimidate journalism organizations and people who provide information to journalism organizations." Intimidate you? They said somewhere else that they had to stay anonymous. The people who made the allegations wanted to stay anonymous because they were afraid of getting mean tweets. Afraid of getting mean tweets. Okay. Stelter asked about the piece, which claimed Trump had made disparaging remarks about the U.S. military, but whose accuracy was then fiercely disputed by numerous figures within the Trump administration. Why grant anonymity in the first place? He continued obsequiously. Help viewers at home understand how this works. Obviously, these sources are not anonymous to you. You know their names, you know why they are credible, and you're attaching your own credibility to them by granting them anonymity. Obsequiously means obediently or subserviently, like a little punk. Basically leading him into the easy question. Goldberg replied, right, of course, and as Jennifer Griffin on Fox said, and I think this was a great quote, she said, these are not people who are anonymous to me. And I mean, yes, we know if you're a good reporter and you're going to quote someone anonymously, you better have faith in what they're saying. It's a complicated thing, as you all know. We all have to use anonymous sources, especially in a climate in which the President of the United States tries to actively intimidate journalism organizations and people who provide information to journalism organizations. But the formula is simple. What you do is you have to say, does the public's right to know or need to know a particular piece of information outweigh the morally complicated and ambiguous qualities of anonymous sourcing? So what they're trying to say is, the way it works is you transfer the credibility of the anonymous sources to your own credibility as a reporter, not comprehending that they don't have any damn credibility anymore. They haven't had any credibility, not even this much, not a shred, not any. Okay? Nobody believes them. These are the same idiots and clowns that had to pay $80 million to a damn teenager because they disparaged him and defamed him so badly and willfully that the kid got death threats and almost got expelled from school and his whole life got turned upside down. $80 million at least. No, you have no credibility anymore, and that's why you are attacked. Because you parade yourself as journalists when you are nothing but political activists, and more often than not, liars. So that's their explanation. But the kicker is, ironically, after the publication of the well-known May 2016 article in the New York Times Magazine, in which former Obama administration Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes essentially admitted he had manipulated the media regarding the Iran nuclear deal, Goldberg attacked David Samuels, the freelancer who had written the article, for writing, for those in need of more traditional-seeming forms of validation, hand-picked Beltway insiders like Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic and Laura Rosen of Al Monitor helped retail the administration's narrative. Goldberg wrote, I did not find this mention of my name amusing at all, because Samuels is making a serious, unsourced, and unsubstantiated allegation against me in an otherwise highly credible publication, one for which I happened to work, in fact. Oh, he's upset that they used unnamed sources against him in a serious manner. This isn't serious? You lying shitbag? This is not the first time Goldberg has targeted Trump over his criticism of mainstream media. In June 2017, he spoke at the Aspen Ideas Festival. I'm sure that was a lovely time. And snapped, what I worry about more than anything else is that there are people in the country who don't understand that this is a cynical reality TV game and are going to hear over and over and over again from the president that the reporters, journalists are enemies of the state, and someone, God forbid, but someone is going to do something violent against journalists in a large way, and then I know where the fault lies. We're heading in this direction, and it's quite frightening. That's real rich coming from the people that are completely downplaying violence against regular citizens on a daily basis, just pretending that it's not there. Fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Yes, we're looking at you, CNN, you bunch of pigs. So the hypocrisy is right. And the icing on the cake to everything is the owner of the Atlantic is actually a Biden mega donor. Reportedly also communicates often with the journalist behind the anonymously sourced Trump bombshell. Atlantic's majority owner has donated over $1.2 million to Democratic candidates and political committees since 2019. That's over a million in a year. So, moving on. And you know that feeling that you get when you find out that somebody that is kind of cool or did something great or, was somebody that kind of was to be revered in the country, turns out to be an absolute, complete, utter liberal shitbag as well. You know that feeling? Well, we saw this statement from our good old pal, the goose killer himself, Mr. Sully Sullenberger, the pilot who famously landed the plane in the Hudson River after he lost both his engines because he flew into a flock of geese. Now, obviously, what the guy did was very heroic, and that was amazing, and they probably would not have made it back to any runway or airport to make a normal landing. Probably, I mean, what he did probably most definitely saved lives. It was a good thing, a nice story. Everybody saw the movie, and this guy's got to come out with without a couple brain cells in his head, and obviously a biased guy. Now he's got to make these kind of remarks. So now he makes his statement, and he goes, "Well, I'm not surprised. I am disgusted by the current occupant of the Oval Office. He has repeatedly and consistently shown himself to be completely unfit for and to have no respect for the office he holds," he added. And then he went on about, his military service. I'm a veteran. My whole family served, blah, blah, blah. And you know what, dude? Everybody respects your service. Same with John McCain. We respect your service. But we don't have to respect you being a complete clown politically. John McCain, towards the end of his life, was a complete political hack. He was a complete clown. Okay? And he screwed a lot of people over. So, while your service is to be respected 100%, I'm sorry. Making comments like these on unsubstantiated and uncorroborated claims is pathetic. And it's not befitting of somebody that wears the uniform. I can tell you that. You want to claim that something's true when you don't know it's true. That's not a good thing for any person to do with any kind of integrity. You should always wait until you get evidence and the facts. Always. Listen, if you want to come up and show me better evidence that Trump said this, then let's talk. But listen, this is the type of thing that we see him do. Remember when he just snuck out on Thanksgiving, didn't tell anybody, just to go visit the troops?
There's nowhere I'd rather celebrate this Thanksgiving than right here with the toughest, strongest, best and bravest warriors on the face of the earth. This evening, as millions of families sit down at their dinner tables back home, they'll be saying a prayer for the men and women serving our nation. Each of you came to do your duty. You came to defend American liberty. You came because our nation needed you, and they needed you right here. The men and women of our military are totally loyal to our country, and every day I am president, America will always be totally loyal to you. Our citizens know that you're standing guard, killing terrorists, crushing our enemies, and keeping America safe. And I'm here today to just really say happy Thanksgiving, but also thank you very much. Great job. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Not to mention their entire article was predicated around the claim that the president did not want to go because his hair would be disheveled. Okay, but as you can see right here, one of his many visits to Arlington National Cemetery was in bad weather. You can see the rain. You can literally see the rain coming down in the picture here. There he is, holding an umbrella like a normal person, not caring. And this article was from December 15th, 2018. And this one actually refers to the incident that these clowns are referring to 2 years later. Now, if they had this information back then, why didn't they disclose it then? Why didn't they say anything? They were saying stuff about it when it happened then. Why didn't they say this exact thing then? Why did they wait until a Military Times poll came out and was saying that President Trump's support was slipping among active duty service members, and for the progressive veterans group to put out their ad disparaging the president and why they hate him because he was mean to John McCain? Why couldn't they do it then? If this was, such a big deal, and you're making a serious claim here. So this even talks about it. President Trump made an unscheduled visit to Arlington National Cemetery on Saturday, where volunteers led by the group Wreaths Across America were placing wreaths on headstones for the holidays. Mr. Trump hadn't followed the practice of some of his predecessors of visiting the cemetery in Arlington, Virginia on Veterans Day last month, a decision he later said he regretted. So he didn't actually make it over there on Veterans Day, which some presidents do, and he said he regretted it, so he made an unscheduled visit later on another date. Days earlier, he had skipped a visit to one of two cemeteries in France where American soldiers who fought in 2 world wars are laid to rest. The White House cited scheduling and logistical difficulties due to bad weather. Right there. There you have it. See, people's memories are not as bad as the media thinks they are. Come on. And even here, it said that he visited one of 2 cemeteries. So the weather was bad the one day, he didn't go. They were able to make it to the other one. After Mr. Trump arrived at the soggy grounds of Arlington Cemetery Saturday afternoon, he was escorted down a row of tombstones with wreaths. "They're doing a great job," he said, referring to the volunteers from Wreaths Across America, while walking with soldiers and the woman through the cemetery. Mr. Trump told his guide that he was looking to expand the cemetery by acquiring land in the area. Yeah, why would he do that if he hated these people? He had such contempt and disdain for these soldiers. It's obvious, too, where these clowns at the Atlantic got this story. It's obvious. Here's another instance of President Trump and the First Lady visiting the troops in Iraq on a Christmas trip, actually, another instance. And President Trump often says that, the United States, the country itself was a sucker for, going in and doing all the hard work for other countries and not getting anything in return for it. We're sending our brave soldiers there. We're paying all of our tax dollars to rebuild their country, and we get nothing in return. So he says America was being a sucker by not getting anything in return for our services. So they would use that. Now they use that because they know, oh, he says that, and they're going to twist that into oh, he called dead soldiers suckers.
came to Al-Assad to share our eternal gratitude for everything you do to keep America safe, strong, and free. America shouldn't be doing the fighting for every nation on earth, not being reimbursed in many cases at all. If they want us to do the fighting, they also have to pay a price. And sometimes that's also a monetary price. So we're not the suckers of the world. We're no longer the suckers, folks. Some people say, well, maybe somebody comes from the area and they hit us on our homeland. If that happens, they will suffer consequences over here like nobody has ever suffered before.
So very clearly, he was talking about the country as a whole and referring to our past leaders, elected leaders. As usual, they flip it and twist it and repackage it into something else. This is the world we live in now, folks. I don't think his record shows that he has any kind of ill will towards any military personnel at all. Why would you rebuild the military to the level that he's rebuilt it to? A pay increase, first time pay increase in 10 years. Better rules of engagement, more practical rules of engagement for the guys on the ground. Making it easier for them to defend themselves. Remember the rules of engagement under Obama? You couldn't engage unless you were practically being shot, unless you were shot first. Unless somebody put a bullet in you first, then you can engage the enemy under Obama. Better equipment, better funded. Visits them quiet visits, sneaking out in the last seconds so the press doesn't know, and visiting these guys on the holidays. It doesn't sound like a president that thinks that they're losers and suckers. Anyway, guys, thanks for sticking with me again.